Hello children, hope you all are doing well. Welcome back to the lesson, The Rise of Nationalism in Europe. We have already learned the first unit of this lesson. In this first unit, we understood the role of French Revolution. We understood the expression of nationalism was firstly brought by the French Revolution. We understood the role of philosophers. We understood the role of common people. We also learned the French armies, how they were spreading, they became the harbingers of liberty. Then we have also learned about Napoleon, the reformative measures brought by Napoleon to bring commonness all over, which were liked all over Europe. Now today we shall be learning our second unit, which is the making of nationalism in Europe. Let's start. Now children, for nationalism to be formed, a country should have common identity, common culture, common tradition, all over a commonness should be there. Was it there in Europe? Let us see, let us learn it by studying the political status of Europe. Germany, Italy and Switzerland, they were divided into kingdoms, cantons and duchies, all ruled by their autocratic monarchs. Here autocratic means the complete power was in the hands of the kings themselves. Okay, likewise Eastern and Central Europe, they were under autocratic monarchies with diverse people. Diverse people here means children, all different kinds of culture, different kinds of tradition, languages, everywhere it was different. Then Habsburg Empire, which ruled over Austria, Hungary, there was also a patchwork of different regions. In Hungary, half of the population they were speaking Magyar, while others were speaking variety of languages. In Galicia, aristocracy, they spoke Polish. Aristocrats means the highest class, the nobles, the officers, they used to speak the Polish language. So such differences, they never promoted a sense of political unity. So this only proved that so much of differences could not promote the nationalism. Then whose role it was there? How did this nationalism came? That is all we shall be learning. We have now, through this political status of Europe, we have learned that there were differences in language, differences in culture, traditions. Only one thing common there was. The common was that they had a loyalty towards their emperor. Now let us learn about the structure of the society. The society, it was consisted of two groups, the aristocrats and the peasantry group. Now as we have studied in French Revolution, children, in France, there existed three estates. Like in Europe as a whole, it consisted of two groups. One were of aristocrats, the other group was peasants. Now these aristocrats, children, they were the highly class, the officers, the nobles, the kings, they came in the aristocrat group. They were politically, socially a dominant class. Those who used to dominate, those who used to enjoy the privileges through their birth. By their birth, they used to enjoy all the privileges. Now, they were numerically, if it was seen, they were small in number. But they were often tied with a common way of living was there. They were connected with each other with the ties of marriages. They used to speak French for showing their diplomacy, to show that how high society they belong to. And they were the owners of vast estates. Now about peasants, children, peasants, they were like as we have studied in the France, their numerically if it is say, they were of 90% of population was of peasant. Likewise in the whole of Europe, they consisted, the peasants they were more in number. Now these peasants, children, most among them were the small owners of land. Some bulk of land also, they also were the owners of some bulk of lands. But mainly these peasants' duty was to work on the fields, as tenants they used to work, or the vast estates, and the vast estates were being cultivated by the serfs. Now who are these serfs, children? Serfs are the lowly class among the peasants. They are called to be as serfs. Okay, like in our country, who are the lowest, who were considered to be as the lowest? The Shudra caste. The same way here in the European society, the serfs were considered to be the lowest. Now children, so these were the two groups which existed in Europe, the aristocrats and the peasants. Now let us learn, children, that how industrialization, with the coming of industrialization, which first came in England. In the mid 18th century, this industrialization came in England. And then later on by 19th century in France, and later on part by part. And now with this emergence of industrialization, the towns started emerging. Then there came a new kind of special commercial class, which started getting education. Through this education, they started developing a feeling. There was a feeling that everyone should be equal. A society where everyone is enjoying the equal right. Now with this growth of industrialization, the towns started getting emerging, and with this towns emergence, the new types of commercial classes started emerging, and new types of commercial classes whose existence was dependent on the production, and with their over expanding trade and all, they became richer and prosperous. They started getting education, and with education they started having a feeling that now the privileges alone should not be met by monarchs. It should be equal among all. So thus they were all this commercial class, they were all also called to be as middle classes. Okay, so this middle classes, this is how the middle classes, they came ahead with a new kind of feeling that freedom should be received equally, it should be receivable by all. Now children, this new social group was called to be as new working class, and working class population, they were together called to be as middle class. And who consisted of this middle class? The businessmen, the merchants, the professionals such as lawyers, the administrative officials, they were called to be as middle classes. And these from among this middle classes only the idea of nationalism emerged. Though they were few and the smaller in number, but they all stood together to forward the message of nationalism. Now let us start with the next topic of us, that is liberalism, the liberal nationalism. Now children, ideas of this national unity, it started from the early 19th century. Now the Europeans, they were closely allied means they were closely now started getting connection towards the liberalism. Okay, the ideology of liberalism. Now this liberalism, what is the meaning of the word liberalism? It has come from a Latin word liber, which means to be free. Now this word liberalism, it has different understanding with different people. Means it was considered differently but in a different ways. Let us see how it was. Like for the new middle classes, this working class population, the middle classes, it was equality before law. Now for the new middle classes, the meaning of liberalism was equality before law and individual freedom. That means no one is restricting me to walk on my own. Means I don't have any restrictions. Individual freedom and equality before law. And politically, if the meaning of liberalism was seen, that was the government by consent. By consent means where the people are involved to select their leaders. And now for the French Revolution, liberalism, what was the meaning of liberalism for them? For them, the liberalism was to end up the autocracies, to abolish the clerical privileges. They wanted a constitution, they wanted a government through parliament. So this was how. But was there equality shown by the French Revolution? Not at all. In 1791 constitution, we remember, children, that they had divided the citizens among passive and active citizens. The active citizens means the propertied people, the non-propertied people, the women, they were denied the right to vote. And we also remember, children, under Jacobins government only, all the non-propertied people, means all kind of people of all ages, they were allowed the right to vote. Means even the non-propertied people were also allowed the right to vote. And Napoleon, what did he do? He reduced the woman's status to minor. He made the women the authority under their husbands, under their fathers. Means they became a subject under their fathers and husbands. And now throughout the 19th and the early 20th century, the non-propertied people, the women, they went on for different opposition movements for getting this right to vote, to get equal political rights. Now liberal nationalism in the economic sphere was freedom of market and abolition of state imposed restrictions on the movements of goods and capital. Now see children, this was the strong demand made by the middle classes, that the state imposed restrictions should be abolished, because from among this middle classes only the business class, the merchants, industrious people, they were more in this group. So that is why they demanded that this should be abolished. Proper. Why this was demanded? The reason was during Napoleon, during his administrative measures, he created a confederation of 39 states, and in each state there was different currencies and there was different weights and measures. And if a merchant has to travel from Habsburg to Nuremberg, he'll have to pass through 11 custom barriers, and they'll have to pay 5% of interest on each of these states. So it created a lot of problem before this business class. The same way, one more example is there children. For the same piece of cloth, the length of a piece of a cloth, it also differed in different regions. Like in Nuremberg, if it is 65.6 centimeter, in Frankfurt for the same piece of cloth it will be 54.7 centimeter, and in Mainz it will be 55.1. So there was a hindrance of movements of goods and capital. So sir, thus this group of people, they wanted an unified economic territory where there is no hindrance of goods and capitals. Now this liberal middle classes, those who wanted economic unified territory to be developed, they wanted certain rules to be formed so that there can be smooth movements of goods and capital. So keeping this in mind, a custom union was formed, which was named as Zollverein in 1834. Now children, this custom union got formed under the initiation of Germany and Prussia. Most of the German states and Prussia took the initiation to form this. And then they removed all the tariff barriers, and the currencies which were over 30, they were reduced to 2. Now children, there was proper smooth movements of goods and capitals, because all those hindrances, those who all were obstacles, they all were removed now. Now slowly there was a creation of railways, and with creation of railways, there was a smooth movements of goods and capitals which harnessed the economic interest, and with this the economic nationalism which strengthened up the nationalist sentiments. Now we will learn about the new conservatism after 1815. Now what do you mean by conservatism? Conservatism means it's a political philosophy that gave importance to traditions, the established institutions and customs. And these were the people, those who wanted gradual change in the society. They were never opposed the changes, but they wanted gradually the changes to be made in the society. Children, we have already learnt about conservators in our previous class, in the lesson Russian Revolution of our history. So we have learned in Russian Revolution that there were 3 groups, those who emerged during the time of Russian Revolution. Who were they? The conservatives, the liberals and the radicals. Conservatives, the kings, the noble classes, they were the conservatives, those who want gradual change in the society. And who were these liberals? Those who had a respect towards that all the religions to be respected, but these people, they wanted only the propertied people the right to vote. But about these radicals, we have learned that these were the group of people, those who wanted a state to be created by the consent of all, and as well as they did not wanted the privileges to be received by the richer sections. Okay, they wanted the equality to be received by the each sections. Now let us learn about the conservatism in more detail. Now, with the defeat of Napoleon in 1815, what happened? European government was driven by a spirit of conservatism, Now these group of people, they believe the traditional institutions like monarchy, the church, the family, the property, everything to be preserved. And now they did not wanted to go back to the pre-revolutionary days as they used to be. They wanted to bring certain changes as initiated by the Napoleon. Now why did they wanted to bring certain changes? So that they could strengthen up their positions. Okay, now for this they made certain changes. Now what were the changes which they brought? That was a modern army, an efficient bureaucracy, a dynamic economy, and abolition of feudalism and serfdom. Now modern army, what do you mean by? Modern army means where they could keep the skilled and the trained personals, so that in future they could not fear to any external powers. And bureaucracy here means, children, the officials, those who are not the elected ones, those who have the powers to take the major decisions. So with this, the changes, they wanted to restore back their monarchical powers, and they wanted to strengthen up their positions. In 1815, the representatives of European powers, the representatives of Britain, Russia, Prussia and Austria, who had collectively defeated Napoleon in the Battle of Waterloo. These forces, from among these forces, the representatives were sent and they met at Vienna to collectively decide, to collectively draw up a settlement for the whole of Europe. Now they were being hosted by an Austrian Chancellor, Duke Metternich. Now these delegates, they drew up a treaty. Treaty means what, bacho? An agreement. The Treaty of Vienna. Now the main intention of theirs was to undo the changes that had come in Europe during Napoleonic War. What all changes had Napoleon had brought, they wanted to undo it, as well as they wanted to restore the powers of the monarchies. So let's learn the Treaty of Vienna. So what were all the settlements made by these forces, that will be learned. Now Treaty of Vienna of 1815. Now according to it, the Bourbon dynasty was restored to power in France. Bourbon dynasty, do you remember, children? In French Revolution we have learned in 1774 the Bourbon king, who was he? Louis XVI. So likewise, king one after another. So we have learned till the king Louis XVI only. So before there only, from years this Bourbon dynasty was ruling over France. Now this Bourbon dynasty had lost their powers during this Maximilien Robespierre. Okay, so same Bourbon dynasty, they got back their power according to the settlement. Then a series of states were set up in the boundaries of France. Why this series of states were being formed? So that in future they could not expand. Then Kingdom of Netherlands, that was set up in north. German Confederation was left untouched. The German Confederation of 39 states, that was left untouched. Russia was given a part of Poland, while Prussia was given a portion of Saxony. Now how was this conservative regimes? What was their nature? That we shall be learning. Now these conservative regimes, they were autocratic by nature. Autocracy means those who were exercising their complete power within themselves. They never used to get consulted by anyone. So they were autocratic rulers. Those who never they tolerated criticism against them or dissent against them. Now what do you mean by dissent? The anger. Means nobody could criticize them or show their anger towards them. And they used to curb all those activities that question the legitimacy of their government. Means nobody could question them, nobody could raise their voices against them. Even they imposed censorship laws. Now censorship laws on newspapers, on books, on plays, on songs, what all things reflected the ideas of equality and freedom, they were being abolished. Means nobody could express their feelings. Now what all so many oppressive measures we learned, children, that they were autocratic, they were following the measure of despotism. All these cruel measures could not stop this liberal nationalist people. Now there was a group of people, those who were coming ahead, they were the revolutionaries. Now let us learn about the revolutionaries. Now all this cruel, the oppressive measures, they couldn't stop this liberal nationalists, because now these liberal nationalists, they have not forgotten the ideas which were being forwarded during the French Revolution, the ideas of equality, the fraternity, democratic form of government. Those they still kept on revolting against this monarchy. Now these liberal nationalists, they kept on criticizing the conservatives against their laws, the laws which didn't favor them, which denied the right to press. Now we shall be learning about revolutionaries. Now who were these revolutionaries? Those who actively participated in revolution against the kings. Okay, now these groups of people, those who are fearless people, those who want to overthrow the government, those who want to create a nation state, those who have, if for being a revolutionary, it's not an easy task. For being a revolutionary means to oppose the monarchy, to forward the liberty, to forward the ideas of liberty and freedom. Now let's learn about revolutionaries. Now who are these revolutionaries? The revolutionaries are the people, those who actively take part in revolution to overthrow the government. They want in through any ways, either through violent ways or through non-violent ways. They wanted to create a nation state. And for being a revolutionary, they'll have to oppose the monarchy. They'll have to forward the ideas of liberty and freedom. So these revolutionaries, even when these oppressive measures were going on, anytime they could be repressed, they started developing secret societies, which was underground. Underground secret societies during 1815 started getting developed. Now these societies were developed to train these revolutionaries, as well as to spread the ideas of nationalism. Now in this lesson we shall be learning about a revolutionary who was Giuseppe Mazzini. Now about Giuseppe Mazzini, children, he was an Italian revolutionary who was born in Genoa, okay, in 1807. Now this, as he was a young man, he joined a secret society in Carbonari. As a young man of 24, this Giuseppe Mazzini, he had taken part in a revolution in Liguria. And because of this revolution, he was being caught and he was sent to exile. Now what do you mean by exile, children? Exile means desh nikala kar dena. Now after coming back from exile, subsequently he founded two secret societies. One was Young Italy in Marseilles and another was Young Europe in Berne. And now the people of these secret society, they were like-minded, and they were the people of Poland, France, from German states and all. Now Germany had a belief, children, that God had intended nations to be the natural unit of mankind. Which means, what do you want to say with this? Was that there should be no discrimination, there should be all equality and peace all over. So Giuseppe did not wanted Italy to be continue in patchwork of small states and kingdom. He wanted Italy to be unified, a unified republic within a wider alliance of nations. Now because of his relentless opposition, the monarchies, now they started getting afraid of him. Duke Metternich has once said about him that he is the most dangerous enemy of our social orders. Now following his model, many more secret societies started getting developed in Germany, France, Switzerland and Poland. So this is how we learn, children, that how there was a role of revolutionaries to spread nationalism, to create a nation state. Thus we have learned, children, that how revolutionaries had a role in spreading up nationalism. They wanted a nation state to be created. They wanted this monarchy system, these privileges to come to an end. So by this whole unit we understood, children, that what was the political status of Europe, how there was a differences all over in languages, customs and in traditions and all, but only one common thing that was a special loyalty towards the emperor. Then we have learned that how the structure of the society was. We learned that how there was two groups, aristocrats and the peasants, and these aristocrats were the dominant class and who had all the privileges with them, and the peasantry class, those who had to pay the taxes, those who did not had the rights. Then we learned about that, children, that how with industrialization, with the emergence of industrialization, a new class came ahead, who were called the liberal nationalists, the working classes, those who were called the middle classes. Now these group of people were those who forwarded the message of liberal nationalism. They wanted freedom. They wanted equality before law. They wanted the markets to be free of the state. They wanted no restrictions to be imposed on. So they wanted a society with equality, fraternity, and peace all over. Then also we all also learned about the revolutionaries, and mainly at the last we learned about Giuseppe Mazzini, the Italian revolutionary who had a main role in unifying Italy. Thus we have come to an end to the second unit of us, which was making of nationalism in Europe. Hope you all have understood the unit, children. Now in the next unit we'll be learning about ages of revolution. The ages of revolution from 1830 to 1848. Thank you, children.